Alright, so good morning. Here we are again with our piece of Danish dough, which I mixed yesterday, and it has risen overnight in the fridge. Now I have rolled it out into a rectangle of some proportion, and I'm going to put the butter in it, which I grab the whole block and just cut off thin slices. I mean, if you're doing a quarter of this recipe, you would be doing this to 2 sticks of butter instead of the whole. Not only do I use this pound, but I get a second pound into this mix as well. And so some days they come out more evenly than others, but somehow it always seems in the end to come together. And once I've got that, I start at either the top or the bottom, and I just start laying them out. If you come across a broken one, just put it aside, it'll come in handy later. So you can get pretty close to this edge here, and pretty close to this edge as well. Try not to have big spaces between them. All right, so when you get to the second to last row here, you're going to see I like to have whole pieces top, bottom, and on the sides if I can. But you can see that this one here is not indeed full size. And here comes in handy the little piece from before. I'll just fold that over. Little adjustment. Alright, so that's the first pound of butter. I'm going to do another one right next to it, and we're going to come back when I've got that under control. Okay, so now here we are with the second half of the butter done, and you can see that the butter is covering roughly 2/3 of that surface, and that the other third is just dough. So you take the just dough part, and so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pads of butter. Easy math, there's the 2/3 mark. And you take this and fold it over. If it's a little short, don't worry, just stretch it. Likewise, if it's a little long, just scrunch it back. And so while you've got it here, and before you do the final turn, take this edge, if you can, if there's enough to do so, and just gently tuck it either into or under this butter. That may help the butter from shooting out of these edges at some point in the future. So once that's done, we're going to fold it right here, and this is going to end up right there. All right, and likewise as we did top and bottom there, with this little piece, if we can, just going to tuck it around that edge of butter. Then flip the whole thing over, maybe a little flour first. And again, there's an edge that could be tucked. All 3 sides. And so now what you have is, as the French call it, the package. The package contains 5 layers. There's dough, butter, and dough. And so the first roll and fold, the first turn, is a little more important than the rest of them. Getting this one right and having no oozing butter will help you all the way to the end. If the butter's cold, heat it up a little bit. keep it moving. And then from there, I'm going to take this triangle, good geometry, take this rectangle of dough and roll it out to roughly the size it was when we put the butter on it. Minimal amounts of flour. Flip it back and forth. It'll help contain, what I call overrun, which is the tendency of the top layer of dough to shoot past the bottom one as you roll. This one's not so bad. This one's a little worse, but I'll show you how to hide that from the prying eyes of the non-baking world. Doesn't need to be perfect. Sometimes a little fat lump in the middle somewhere. If you can eliminate it, all the better. Now when you've got it out back to that original size, I'm going to take a look. What's the neatest edge to show on the outside? And what's the ugliest edge, one that we really want to hide inside? Today, nobody's really that ugly, so we're going to put this one inside, leave that one on the outside. In order to get these layers to bind together, you got to get any loose flour that's just sitting on the surface off. And then fold that to some mystical, magical third mark. Again, this surface needs to be dusted. And then fold it over to test the fit. If it goes a little too far, just fold the inner one a little further over. Try it again. All right, pretty good line. As I roll it out, it's going to stretch and meet that edge more completely. And again, a little bit of flour doesn't hurt, not too much. So this is 2 turns. Here's the original one in there. Here's this one. So now those 5 layers have been multiplied by 3, and there's somewhere near 15 layers in there. Again, I'm going to roll this out if the universe allows such a thing. I'm going to roll this out to the size that it originally was. If you are doing a smaller recipe than this will not be this gruesome of a task. But I can assure you, and I'm sure you know, that the gruesomeness of this task is well worth the results. All right, so it's pretty even. See what happens. Little pass evens out pretty nicely. This one's got some crazy overrun going on from the bottom. Sometimes the next pass, when you flip it over, corrects it. Flip it back and forth. This is not, this will most likely end up inside when I fold it up again. I'm not done rolling, but yeah, even more reason it should end up inside is there is a tiny little piece of butter ooze there. I don't know if you can see it in this substandard lighting we have here. Butter pressure, force that out. You can, wet this piece and fold it over if you want, or just pinch it together. We haven't got much further to go. so we won't worry about it too much. You know, after you've done this a while, you might find that all your efforts now, that as soon as you get off the pin, it snaps back to the size it was. And when you get there, maybe you should stop. So it's close enough for me to fold it the last time. We put the ugly edge in the middle, real pretty edge here. Same as last time. And this is like when you used to go to the barber shop and he would shave the back of your neck and then he would dust off those little hairs. Mind you, this is purely based on memory because I haven't been to a barber shop in 20 years for any reason. Alright, so ugly edge goes inside. Little much. Once you're sure of where you're going, you can just create a little crease by pinching that. That's there. Not too sure where I was going apparently. Alright. And that is turn number 3. So I have stretched this dough out pretty far. And I don't know that it would willingly allow me to stretch it much further. In addition to that, the butter is warming up, and the tendency for it to squirt out becomes greater the warmer it becomes. So I'm going to take this piece of dough, which has got all the turns it needs, wrap it, and refrigerate it for a few hours. And then I will roll it out one last time and cut it into 4 pieces, because it is in fact 4 little batches of Kouign Ammans, each making 12 or so Kouign Ammans, or 4 batches of Danish, or 2 and 2. Anyway, wrap it good and tight. This is a yeasted dough, so any expansion that happens under this tight wrapping is just going to serve to force those layers together. All right, we'll see you in a couple of hours for the final check. All right, and now we have the final installment of the Kouign Amman dough. So this is that piece of dough that's been in the fridge for 4 hours or so. Plenty of time to relax. And you know, one final time, I'm going to try to roll it out to the initial size that that piece of dough was before I fold it in the butter. And it's not going to do it very willingly, but it will happen. Again, with the recipe that you'll be making at your house, much smaller, much easier to work with. Big air bubbles, don't worry about them. If they bother you that much, pop them. If not, they will pop themselves. The video signal appears to have been interrupted some in there while I was painstakingly folding this thing out. But anyway, that's the end of the day, what you got there. Is all those little layers. I'm going to wrap these 4 up and actually freeze all of them for 2 days. In this state, they can freeze pretty well for weeks if you need to, or just let it sit overnight in the fridge if you want to make it tomorrow. All right, so now all I need from life is photos of your Kouign Amman, Liza. Thank you very much.